The 2010s, an ancient bygone era with many great movies and many terrible movies. And I'm going to be ranking every last one of them. But actually not really, I'm just going to be ranking the ones that I feel like talking about. Alright, The Tree of Life, the most mind-blowing, impressively made movie of all time. Yeah, I'm sorry, but this one just wasn't quite for me. It's just one of those movies where I massively respect Terrence Malick for making this. It's one of the most beautiful movies ever. That whole sequence near the beginning where it goes from the beginning of the universe all the way until the present. That's some pretty crazy, ambitious stuff there, but oh my God, bro, this movie is just kind of a snoozer if I'm being honest. I know a lot of people swear by this movie and absolutely love it, and I get why, I totally do, but I'm sorry, it's just not a movie for me. Alright, The Intern, that one movie with Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway. The one where Robert De Niro is a retiree and he gets an internship at Anne Hathaway's startup. I mean, this is pretty much the textbook definition of an airplane movie. I would not be surprised if 75% of the people who watched this movie saw it on an airplane. This has mid written all over it. However, if I'm being honest, this is kind of like the best mid movie ever made. Like, it shouldn't be as enjoyable as it is, but I gotta put this up to the guilty pleasure category. Like, even though it is a textbook airplane movie and it should be a mid movie by all accounts, is actually really good. Like, I really like this movie. Robert De Niro is just so likable in this. I don't even know. There's not much to say about it. It's just a cozy little comfort movie that shouldn't be as enjoyable as it is. All right, The Wolf of Wall Street. I'm just going to be honest. This one's peak. Yeah, I know some people like to make fun of The Wolf of Wall Street because, I don't know, I guess a lot of dude bro type of people love this movie. I don't care. The dude bros are right. Wolf of Wall Street's amazing. It's peak. Actually, you know what? I'm putting Wolf of Wall Street in the Hall of Fame. You can't tell me this movie is not entertaining. Like, I've seen some people complain about, oh, like this movie is so... All right, the Avengers movies. So right off the bat, let's start off with the OG Avengers. I would say I'm sorry because I know a lot of people love this movie and personally I don't like it. But you know what? I'm feeling extra mean today. I'm going to put this in mid because this movie does not hold up at all. I tried rewatching this a few months back. I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to give this movie another chance. Maybe this really is as good as some of the people say it is. It's not. This movie does not hold up in my books. The movie looks like shit. It's corny as hell. I don't care about the story. I'm not even an MCU hater. Okay, I understand this movie was pretty influential, I guess, if you consider the whole cinematic universe thing to be this revolutionary advancement in cinema. I mean, it's not really, but this movie just doesn't hold up. There's been way better Marvel movies since then. I understand why a lot of people have nostalgia for it and love it, but no, it's mid. If you don't believe me, try rewatching this movie and be honest with yourself. Is it as good as you remember it? It's not. And then we have Infinity War and Endgame. And for Infinity War, I'm kind of torn between good movie and guilty pleasure. I don't really think this qualifies as a guilty pleasure. I'll be nice. I'll be charitable. I'll say Infinity War is a good movie. It has its issues. The movie is kind of dumb. Out of all of the MCU movies, this is the most MCU the MCU has ever been. So I kind of do have to give a little bit of respect to it, even though the movie is pretty dumb. It's a good time. So I don't know. I'm going to say it's a good movie, but it barely qualifies. And then for Avengers Endgame, I know a lot of people say that this is better than Infinity War because it has more emotional resonance, it has a more satisfying conclusion, it's a more complete overall story, but I'm sorry, Avengers Endgame, it's just not for me. The whole time travel gimmick and they go back in time to all the old MCU movies didn't really do it for me. I understand if you're a hardcore Marvel fan, you've been following it for close to a decade at this point. Actually, probably more than a decade by the time this came out. I don't really know. I don't follow the timeline. I mean, I understand if you're that hardcore of a fan, the fan service, the time travel, going back to Winter Soldier and whatever the other movies. I can understand why people would be cheering in their theaters and just, oh my God, Captain America just pulled out Thor's hammer. I don't know. Didn't really do anything for me. And then we have the Hunger Games movies. I don't care what anyone says, the Hunger Games movies are bangers. These movies are actually so entertaining. Now, for the first Hunger Games movie, it is a little bit rough around the edges. It has its issues, but It's a good movie. I'm sorry. I'm putting it on the same tier as Avengers Infinity War. You can sue me. I like The Hunger Games. It's an entertaining movie. But now when we're talking about Catching Fire, the sequel to The Hunger Games, yeah, I'm just going to do it. It's peak cinema. I don't care what anyone says. Hunger Games Catching Fire is peak cinema. This isn't even a nostalgia thing. I watched these movies somewhat recently because I was like, why not? They're on Netflix or whatever. I'm going to try these things out. The first Hunger Games movie, I was like, okay, this has its issues. I could understand why it's not some critically acclaimed movie, but it was entertaining. And then I watched Hunger Games Catching Fire. They straight up improved on every single aspect from the first Hunger Games movie. I think these movies get a bad rap because they're adaptations of a YA book series, and everyone likes to make fun of YA books. I mean, I get it. Like, yeah, they're easy to make fun of. If you haven't seen the Hunger Games, like, I promise you, go watch the first Hunger Games. You might not think it's that good, but then watch Catching Fire and tell me that I'm wrong. It's peak. And then we have The Social Network, and for some weird reason, a corporate biopic about a website that everyone hates just happens to be like one of the best movies to come out in the last 20 years or so. The Social Network is actually a perfect movie. Whenever I have to explain to people that The Social Network is one of my favorite movies, I always get weird looks. People are like, really? The Social Network is one of your favorite movies? Like that movie? Yes, I'm telling you, watch this movie with an open mind. Ignore the fact that it is about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. I understand that everyone kind of hates Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg is kind of lame. I get it. But just as a movie, The Social Network goes so hard. If you just view it purely as a fictional story about a anti-hero / villain type character, obviously it's probably not very accurate to Mark Zuckerberg. Actually, not probably. It just isn't accurate to the real story at all. It doesn't matter. Just view it as a fictional movie and enjoy. It is so good. And I have to mention Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, the best film composers working today. This is one of the best musical scores ever. And I honestly think that this movie already was kind of perfect, even disregarding the music. But the music is what really takes it up to the next level. So this is easily a Hall of Fame. All right, The King's Speech. This is the first movie I think of when I think of Oscar bait. I mean, I don't think it's a bad movie. It's an inspirational, true story about a guy overcoming his speech impediment to get, I don't really care. It's fine. I'm not going to say it's like a bad movie or even that it's mid. I don't know. I guess I'll put it in the I'm sorry category. This is like an Oscar darling. This is the textbook example of Oscar bait. It's just the type of movie that I would never want to go out of my way to watch. And now we have Goon. The cinephile part of my brain is telling me, yeah, this movie is mid, it's kind of trash, it's not very well made. But the hockey fan side of my brain is like, are you kidding me, bro? Goon is absolute peak cinema. So I'm going to compromise a bit and put it in the guilty pleasure category. I know it's not the greatest movie ever made. I know it's not super well made, but anyone who is a hockey enjoyer, or even if you're not a hockey enjoyer and you just like dumb, fun movies, watch Goon. It's a fun movie. And then the movie Circle. And if you haven't heard of this, I'm pretty sure it's like a straight to Netflix type thing. Or even if it's not, it has that straight to Netflix vibe to it. It's this movie with a bunch of D-list actors, and the basic premise is they're all trapped in this weird social experiment type thing. And every 10 minutes or so, they have to vote off one person, and whoever gets voted off gets murked. And yeah, the movie kind of sucks. The acting is terrible, but one thing you need to know about me is that one of my biggest guilty pleasures ever are these types of game show reality TV shows, especially Survivor. I absolutely love Survivor. I love these shows where it's people scheming with each other, forming alliances, and they vote people off one by one. So yeah, the movie is kind of not good, but I would be lying if I said I didn't have a good time watching this. This activated that reality TV part of my brain. So yeah, it's a guilty pleasure. If you are into Survivor, like Big Brother, those types of tacky but also enjoyable reality TV shows, definitely check out Circle. You'll probably have a good time watching it. And then we have the Grand Budapest Hotel. And here's the thing, it's a Wes Anderson movie. And with all Wes Anderson movies, you kind of usually get sort of the same thing. The 4:3 aspect ratio, the hyper obsession with the rule of thirds, quirky characters, all of that stuff. And I think the Grand Budapest Hotel is the peak Wes Anderson. That's Wes Anderson's best iteration of the shtick that he does in all of his movies. At least in my opinion. Some people might disagree. You might like Life Aquatic or Royal Tenenbaums or Fantastic Mr. Fox. I don't know. In my opinion, Grand Budapest Hotel is peak Wes Anderson. I'm going to put it in the good movie category just because I'm not really that much of a Wes Anderson super fan or anything. I like his movies. I don't dislike them by any means. I will enjoy watching a Wes Anderson movie, but I'm not one of these people who's like, oh my God, Wes Anderson dropped a new movie. I have to go buy tickets ASAP. No, I mean, if I had to pick one Wes Anderson movie to only watch for the rest of my life, it would be Grand Budapest Hotel. I just think it's Wes Anderson in his peak form, I guess, but he kind of just does the same thing over and over. Good movie. No higher than that for me, though. And then Whiplash. I'm not really a jazz person. I'm more of a rock and metal / hip hop / pop guy. I don't really listen to a lot of jazz. So as far as I've heard some jazz people have beef with the movie Whiplash. People are like, well, I studied jazz at Juilliard or whatever, and this movie is so inaccurate. But like, I don't really care because I'm not a jazz head. I don't know anything about jazz. This movie is so good. I mean, you don't even have to like jazz. This movie is actually probably better if you're not a jazz person because, you know, if you're an expert on jazz music, you might be rolling your eyes. I don't know. Ignorance is bliss, as they say, and I think Whiplash is absolute peak cinema. Borderline Hall of Fame. You know what? I'm going to put it in the Hall of Fame because, yeah, it's better than Hunger Games Catching Fire. I love Hunger Games Catching Fire. Whiplash is a step above that. Whiplash is so good. And I'm not the person who came up with this. I have no idea where I heard this, but I heard someone point out that Whiplash is actually a sports movie disguised as a jazz movie. And that is so true. Whiplash is a sports movie. It's about this abusive coach going after the best player on the team. And I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything, but Whiplash is so good. I love it. Whiplash is absolute Hall of Fame, pure cinema, if you ask me. And then Parasite. Do I even need to say anything? Parasite is in the Hall of Fame. I mean, yeah, the movie does have a few issues here and there, but come on, it's Parasite. It's so good. One of the most entertaining movies of all time. And then we have Arrival. I love Arrival. I love the fact that it's an alien invasion movie, but instead of an action movie, it's about linguists. It's different than any other alien invasion movie. This would be in the Hall of Fame, and I do think it is one of Denis Villeneuve's best movie, but I do have to downgrade it to peak cinema. I'll put it at the top of peak cinema. And the reason why I'm downgrading it is because of one line of dialogue in this movie where Jeremy Renner's character literally says, well, that just happened. Like, it literally uses the "well, that just happened" meme in this movie. It's an egregious error. I can't put a movie with the "well, that just happened" thing in the Hall of Fame, but this is as close to the Hall of Fame as you can get. Blade Runner 2049. This is also going in the peak cinema category. I'm going to put it right below Arrival. Blade Runner 2049 is great. I do prefer the original Blade Runner just a little bit. I like the fact that in the original Blade Runner, it's grimy. It feels like this rundown shithole city. The new Blade Runner 2049, it's a little bit too clean for the setting. But I mean, it's still a great movie. It looks great. It can be a tad bit slow at times, but that's also true of the original Blade Runner. I don't know. I love Blade Runner 2049. And then we're banging out all these Denis Villeneuve movies. Prisoners also goes into peak cinema. I'm going to put it I'm going to put it slightly above Blade Runner 2049. Blade Runner 2049 is absolute eye candy. It's super striking. Prisoners is a little bit more subtle. It's also, I'm pretty sure Roger Deakins was the DP on Prisoners. I'm not 100% sure on that. Prisoners is not quite as flashy as Blade Runner 2049. It's not a movie where you're going to put it on the screen and just be like, oh my God, look how amazing it looks. But Prisoners is just a riveting thriller, and I think it's absolutely great. All right, then we have Sicario, and from what I've seen, most people would put Arrival or Prisoners or Blade Runner 2049 above Sicario when it comes to Denis Villeneuve's filmography. I mean, I don't know. Other than Dune Part 2, Sicario is actually my favorite Denis Villeneuve movie. This movie is just awesome. And then we have Incendies. A lot of people think that this is Denis Villeneuve's best movie. I get why people think that. You know how when you're watching some movies and you're just thinking like, Yeah, I can see why so many people love this so much and why they would consider it Denis Villeneuve's best movie. I don't even necessarily think it's because of any particular aspect of the filmmaking. It's just the type of subject matter and film that it's a little bit more highbrow, I guess. It's not a sci-fi movie or like a genre movie being like, oh, like those sci-fi movies. No, Incendie is when Denis Villeneuve really peaked. And also it's in French, so that elevates it a little bit more. If you like a French-speaking, less popular Denis Villeneuve movie rather than Dune or Blade Runner, that gives you more points in the cinephile. Now, I'm being kind of an asshole right now. It really is a good movie, and anyone is entitled to their opinion. Like, it's perfectly reasonable to say that this is his best movie. I'm going to put it in the good movie category. It is really good. It's just, I don't know. I wasn't as entertained by it as I was most of Denis Villeneuve's other movies. And then next up is First Reformed. If you haven't seen this movie and you're a fan of Taxi Driver, you definitely need to watch this movie. Paul Schrader, the guy who wrote the script for Taxi Driver, wrote and directed First Reformed. And First Reformed is very similar to Taxi Driver, except replace a taxi driver with a crazy priest guy. This movie gets wild. I'm not going to spoil anything, but this is a pretty wild movie. It's peak cinema, if you ask me. I don't know if I would say it's as good as Taxi Driver, but it's pretty close, actually. First Reformed is really good. All right, and now we have the Planet of the Apes trilogy. I'm a huge Planet of the Apes person. I don't know why Planet of the Apes is not more popular. Like, these movies are so good. I don't know. Some people disrespect these movies a little bit. I mean, not really. They were well-received movies, but I don't know. For some reason, the Planet of the Apes trilogy from the 2010s, it seems like it kind of, I don't want to say it fell under the radar because these were pretty big movies, but I don't see enough people giving credit to how awesome these movies are. I see some people making fun of this movie or clowning on this movie. Why? Rise of the Planet of the Apes is so fun. I don't know. Maybe it's just the perfectly tailor-made movie for my taste. I mean, it's a movie about a chimpanzee taking experimental medicine, becoming super intelligent, and then starting a revolution and then taking to the streets. Like, Rise of the Planet of the Apes is so fun. I am going to put it in the good movie category just because Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, in my opinion, is just a better upgraded version of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And I'm going to put Dawn of the Planet of the Apes in peak cinema. Actually, you know what? I'm putting Dawn of the Planet of the Apes in the Hall of Fame. I don't care. I love Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. That movie is so good. One of my favorite blockbusters ever. People make fun of it. Like, the meme of that movie is that, oh, it's like chimpanzees riding horses shooting AK-47s, and people are like, yeah, that's awesome, but also kind of making fun of it a little bit. But like, unironically, that is actually just awesome. Like, it's about chimpanzees getting super smart and entering the Stone Age. Actually, not just chimpanzees, like bonobos, gorillas, orangutans. Like, I don't know why. I just love that shit. And this might be a bit of a deep cut for those of you who are more movie fans and not really as much of gamers, but there's this game called Civilization. Well, it's like a series of games, and it's sort of like this grand strategy type game where you start a civilization in the Stone Age and you build it up. But anyway, in that game, whenever you start, you found your civilization in the ancient era at the beginning, and then it's only a matter of time before you run into a neighboring civilization that's right next to you. And you just know that you two are going to be going to war with each other. There's just simply not enough space for the two of us. You know, that type of thing. That's kind of what Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is, except instead of two Stone Age civilizations, it's this emerging Stone Age ape civilization and this post-apocalyptic human civilization. I love that shit. I eat that shit up. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, easily in the Hall of Fame for me, and it's really good. I forget the director's name. I'm blanking on his name. It's Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves is a really good director. Most people know him for The Batman, but Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, in my opinion, is his best movie. He's a really good director, and this movie is absolutely amazing. And then we have War for the Planet of the Apes, where Woody Harrelson channels Marlon Brando from Apocalypse Now. It's a pretty dark movie for a movie about apes, but I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything. This is probably my least favorite of the trilogy, but it's still really good. So yeah, I'm going to put that into the good movie tier. All right, Gaspar Noé's Climax. This movie, in my opinion, is a pretty good litmus test to see what someone's taste in movies is, because some people absolutely despise this movie. If you took a random sample of the population, like let's say you took a random sample of 100 people, I'm pretty sure at least 50 of them would say that Climax is one of the worst movies they've ever seen. Some people absolutely despise this movie, but then you ask other people and you're like, oh my God, that was absolutely amazing. Well, I'm in the category of thinking this movie is amazing. I love Climax. I'm not going to put in the Hall of Fame because it's kind of cringe at times. Like there's some pretty cringe writing in this movie. The only way I could really even describe this movie is it's a bunch of French dancers and the entire movie is just a really bad trip. And then we have Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. I love Paul Thomas Anderson. Boogie Nights is my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie, but I also pretty much love most of his movies. Paul Thomas Anderson, out of more serious, I guess, auteur directors, Paul Thomas Anderson's movies are always so funny. Not always, but pretty much all of his movies are going to get a gut-wrenching laugh out of me at some point in the movie. The Master is no exception to that. This movie has some hilarious moments, but it's also kind of a weird movie. I don't know. I really like The Master. I'm not quite as high on it as some people, but I am willing to put this into peak cinema. It's not quite in the Hall of Fame for me. It's not my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie, but it's so good, though. I really think The Master is peak cinema. And then we have The Phantom Thread, another Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I put off watching this movie for way too long because I just thought it was going to be this really boring, stuffy movie. And I don't know why I thought that, because I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I should have known better. I just saw the general premise of this movie and the setting and like the costumes. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a very stuffy movie. But no, it's actually really funny. Honestly, this might be Paul Thomas Anderson's funniest movie. And same with The Master. It's not quite my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson. Not quite in the Hall of Fame for me. All right, Mad Max Fury Road. This goes into the Hall of Fame for me. Mad Max Fury Road is one of the best action movies of all time. I mean, obviously a million people have already said that by now, and those million people are correct. Mad Max Fury Road is not only super entertaining and impressive as an action movie, but it has surprisingly great character development given how little dialogue is actually in this movie. This movie has one of the most bare bones scripts ever, yet it actually does have quite a bit of character development. It's a very efficient movie. That's how I would describe it. It's in the Hall of Fame. This is such a classic. 21 Jump Street, not only a super entertaining movie, but a movie that made me laugh throughout. It's been a really long time since I saw 21 Jump Street. I'm only going to be ranking these based on how I felt when I watched it at the time. It might have been a very long time ago, but I really liked this at the time I watched it. I can't say it's not a good movie. If a movie makes me laugh, then I'm happy. Like a movie that can make me laugh pretty much start to finish, that's a good movie. And The Other Guys, same exact thing with 21 Jump Street. If a movie makes me laugh from start to finish, then it's a good movie in my opinion. And same thing with The Cabin in the Woods. It made me laugh, therefore it's a good movie. And same thing with Silver Linings Playbook. It made me laugh, therefore I think it's a good movie. You could say that Silver Linings Playbook is kind of dumb, and there's certain aspects of it you're like, okay, I know what you're doing there, because it's a rom-com, and I'm not a rom-com hater. I'm not the biggest rom-com fan ever, but I do like rom-coms. And the thing with Silver Linings Playbook is that it very heavily centers the story around football, and it makes like American football, and it makes that a huge central part of these characters. So it's like, okay, you're trying to appeal to the guys, like I know what you're trying to do, but I like football, so it worked on me. And Under the Skin, and this has to go into the I'm sorry category for me. I really respect Under the Skin. It's one of the most interesting movies I've seen, extremely well made. I don't know, it's super fucking weird. I just wasn't super into it when I watched it. I might have to give it another chance someday, but for now I have to put it in the I'm sorry category. And then Guardians of the Galaxy. This goes into the good movie category because I think it's just one of the best Marvel movies. I love the soundtrack. I love that they went for the lesser known Marvel character. I don't know, pretty much everything everyone said about it. Like, oh, they pulled these comic book characters that nobody knows about and they made it into this huge hit that everyone loves. Yeah, it's cool. I like that they did that. I like that it kind of stood apart from the rest of the MCU. I mean, the villain sucked, and if I'm being honest, the whole dance-off thing at the end, I know a lot of people love that. I was just like, okay, like, I don't know about that, but it's still a good movie. I think, yeah, it's not peak cinema, it's not Hall of Fame, but yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy, thumbs up for me. And Thor Ragnarok, pretty much the same thing as a lot of these other comedies. It made me laugh, so I have to put it into the good movie category. And then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, arguably one of Tarantino's best movies, but also arguably his most flawed movie. I understand why some people just really don't like this movie, but I liked it. I really enjoyed the setting. I actually love the 1960s setting. I love the soundtrack. I love the characters. This movie is hilarious. I talked about this in another video, and I had a comment mention that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is their comfort movie, and I could not agree more. That is exactly what this movie is. So I'm just gonna put it in the peak cinema category. I don't care. Like, it's for a movie to be as much of a comfort movie as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and as funny as it is, it's got to go in the peak cinema category for me. And Django Unchained, a lot of people think that this is Tarantino's best movie. It's really good. It's really fun. I'm going to just put this into the good movie tier. I don't know. I would have to rewatch it. It's been a really long time since I saw Django Unchained. It might go up into peak cinema if I rewatched it. All right, Bad Times at the El Royale, a movie that desperately wanted to be a Tarantino movie, and I mean, it was pretty good. I kind of liked it. It was entertaining. I don't know if I'd put it in the good movie tier or guilty pleasure tier. I'll say good movie, but it's like barely into the good movie tier. Barely. And I'm realizing that this tier list is starting to get super top heavy. I don't do it on purpose, guys. It's just because when I was going through my letterbox and picking what movies do I want to talk about in this video, I guess I just happen to prefer talking about movies I like rather than talking about movies I don't like. I don't know. Plus, if a movie is a bad movie, I'm much less likely to want to watch it in the first place. I'm not one of these people who's like, I have to watch every single movie that comes out so I can do a review on it. Now, I'll watch a movie if I feel like watching a movie. I'm not going to go out of my way to watch a movie just for the sake of completing it and saying that I watched it. So I don't know. Like Madam Web, for example. I know everyone says, oh, you have to watch Madam Web. It's so bad. But it's like, I mean, I don't really care that much. I don't really feel like watching it. Maybe someday, but anyway, that's a little side tangent. So yeah, that's why this tier list is so top heavy. Looking at the rest on this list, there will be some more in the bottom tiers later on. And Inception, Hall of Fame, don't care. Inception's amazing. This is peak Christopher Nolan. Say what you will about the dream logic and the lack of creativity from Nolan in exploring dreams. I don't care. This movie's awesome. It's just an awesome heist movie. The dream stuff is cool. I do agree that he could have done more with it. I have seen dreams depicted better in other movies, but I don't care. Inception is awesome. Okay, Interstellar. Okay, you can make fun of the power of love is the greatest force in the universe and some of the cheesy dialogue in this movie. I don't care. I love Interstellar. It goes in the Hall of Fame for me. I do understand why some people are just like, nah, fuck Interstellar, but I'm not one of those people. I really, really like Interstellar. The whole climax of the movie, I've seen Interstellar multiple times. That scene makes me tear up every time. And I'm not someone who cries in movies very often, but Interstellar gets me. I think it's so good. All right, Spring Breakers. This is a movie that a lot of people absolutely hate. I guess it's kind of like Climax in the sense where if you took a random sample of 100 people, 50 of them would probably say it's one of the worst movies they've ever seen. But I think Spring Breakers is actually pretty good. Like, it is very tacky. It takes all of the tackiest, corniest aspects of 2010s American culture, I guess. Like, imagine going to an EDM concert, but like bro EDM music. And I mean, I know some people like that, no shade, but I really just do not like that whole vibe. I don't like that type of music. Would never want to go to an EDM festival, but Spring Breakers takes that and it knows that it's tacky and it's kind of making fun of it. And it's, I don't know, it's using that in a way that is almost artistic. I don't know if I'd put this in guilty pleasure or good movie. I'll put it in guilty pleasure just to fill out this tier a little bit, but I think that Spring Breakers is a borderline good movie, but it's also kind of a guilty pleasure because it's dumb, but it's intentionally dumb. I don't even know. I'll just put it in guilty pleasure. All right, and then Neighbors. I would put this in guilty pleasure, but just to be consistent, a movie that made me laugh, I kind of have to put it in the good movie tier. Do I think that the comedy in this movie is anything genius or anything like that? No, but it made me laugh, so what can I say? And then John Wick. I love the John Wick movies. I'm tempted to put this into the peak cinema tier because I just love John Wick so much. I'll be a little bit more strict and put into the good movie tier. To be honest, I kind of have to try to go out of my way to put movies in lower tiers. I don't know why. I just like kind of naturally put a lot of shit in higher tiers. I should probably fix that. Uh-oh, I've been recording for a long time. Damn, bro. All right, What We Do in the Shadows. I'm going to put this actually in peak cinema. It has the same rule that if it makes me laugh, it has to go in the good movie tier. But in the case of What We Do in the Shadows, it made me laugh more than any of those other movies. So I have to even put it up above and put it in the peak cinema tier. Anyone who says that Taika Waititi sucks or they don't like Taika Waititi because of like Thor, Love and Thunder and all that, go watch What We Do in the Shadows. This movie is so good. And The Nice Guys. And there's kind of a meme about The Nice Guys where a lot of people be like, oh, have you heard of this underrated movie, The Nice Guys? It's so funny. And it's at the point where it's not even underrated anymore if every movie guy is telling you about how good The Nice Guys is. Well, I'm kind of one of those guys because I love The Nice Guys. This movie is really funny. Again, it made me laugh, so it's a good movie. And The Wailing, I'm sorry. Everyone told me that this is like one of the best horror movies of the last 20 years. I love horror movies. I'm a horror movie guy. The Wailing just didn't quite do it for me. I'm sorry. I understand why people like it. There's a lot to like about this movie, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was just in the wrong mood when I watched it. And just as a little quick tangent, okay, that's the thing about film criticism, I guess, is that so much of how much you actually enjoy a movie is dependent on the mood that you're in when you watch the movie and just the context of it. So, I mean, it really is kind of hard to try to be objective about it when so much of it pretty much is just dependent on your state of mind. So that might have happened to me when I watched The Wailing. I might have just been in the wrong mindset, but I'm sorry. At the time I watched it, it just didn't quite do it for me. And then we have Alex Garland's Annihilation. A lot of people would consider this to be the Wish.com version of Tarkovsky's Stalker. And this is going to be my hottest take ever. I know that Tarkovsky's Stalker is a better movie by almost any metric or standard that you would use to apply. But if I'm just being honest, I did enjoy Annihilation more than I enjoyed Stalker. Stalker was a movie that I very much appreciated, but I wasn't actually fully engaged with it. I was like, okay, yeah, I understand this is a great movie. I respect Tarkovsky, but I was like, bro, is this movie going to wrap up anytime soon? Annihilation, cheap imitation of Stalker, I guess, but I found it a little bit more entertaining, if I'm just being honest. So I'm going to put in the good movie tier. I really like Annihilation. I don't think it's quite peak, but it's good. It's really good. And then we have Uncut Gems, and I mean, I don't know why, but there's something about this movie that just really, really works for me. I love Uncut Gems. I'm going to put this into the Hall of Fame. For some reason, I didn't even know this until I looked on like Letterboxd or something like that, and I saw a lot of negative reviews for Uncut Gems. Apparently, a lot of people really hate this movie. Also, one of my friends in real life, when I asked him if he's seen Uncut Gems, he was like, oh, I couldn't even get through the first 30 minutes. I hated that movie. I was like, why do people hate the Uncut Gems? Uncut Gems is so good. I love it. I love the music. I love the frenetic pacing of it. I love the overall vibe to it. I don't know. Uncut Gems is in the Hall of Fame for me. And then I'm going to do Good Time because that's the other Safdie Brothers movie on here. And I'm going to put that in peak cinema. A lot of people think that Good Time is the best Safdie Brothers movie. I'm more of an Uncut Gems person, but I do think Good Time is peak. It's really great. All right, and then Jason Bourne. I don't know if this was like the 4th or the 5th Jason Bourne movie. I love the original 3 Jason Bourne movies. Those were really fun action movies. But what was this? This movie was such a snoozer. Oh my God. And I love Jason Bourne. It doesn't take a lot for me to get into a Jason Bourne movie, but bro, this movie was just so lame. I'm gonna put it in trash. And The Florida Project, peak cinema. Florida Project is so good. Like, I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it. I just wanted to throw it on here just to say, if you haven't seen The Florida Project, go check it out because it's really good. And The Irishman. I know a lot of people love The Irishman. Some people even say this is the best Scorsese movie. I'm sorry. The Irishman just doesn't quite do it for me. I get why people love it so much. And I mean, not to harp too much on the de-aging thing, because everyone has already talked about that to death and made fun of this movie a lot for it. But yeah, I don't know why. Like, I understand you want to reunite all of these actors and make it the last hurrah between Scorsese and De Niro and Pesci, but I don't know. I really think they probably should have just gotten younger actors rather than spend millions and millions of dollars on de-aging, and then it didn't even turn out that good. I hate to say, I mean, Scorsese still got it. Don't get me wrong. Scorsese is great, a legend, absolutely. But yeah, I'd way rather just watch Goodfellas or Casino. Like, The Irishman is just, it just didn't really do it for me. I'm sorry. And Get Out. I'm going to put Get Out in, it's between good movie or peak cinema. I'm going to put it in good movie to play it safe. I do think Get Out is really good. I just don't think it is quite peak cinema. Like, a lot of people when Get Out came out were like, this is one of the best movies ever. And I understand a lot of it was just due to the social commentary aspect of it. Yeah, that was really good, but I don't know. I don't think Get Out is an absolute masterpiece like a lot of people are saying it is. It is really good, and it's a really impressive directorial debut. I'll put it at the top of the good movie tier. I mean, it is borderline peak cinema if you ask me. It's just not quite there. All right, Ad Astra, mid. I mean, I'm sorry. I love space movies. It really doesn't take a lot for me to get into a space movie. Interstellar, 2001: A Space Odyssey, love both of those, especially 2001. But Ad Astra is just, whatever. It's just mid. Joker. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people love Joker. I'm not going to be one of these people who's like, oh, it just ripped off Taxi Driver and King Kong. I mean, kind of did, but I don't really care. I don't know. I wasn't really that into Joker. Joaquin Phoenix was great. Don't get me wrong. I don't know. It's just not really my thing. All right, and then Burning. This is peak cinema. One of the best South Korean movies I've ever seen. Parasite is the South Korean movie that gets all the accolades and fame, and very well deserved, because Parasite is absolutely amazing. But Burning is right up there. And I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I'm super well versed in Korean cinema, because I'm not. Out of the Korean movies I've seen, Burning is absolutely amazing. It's so good. If you haven't seen Burning, definitely go watch it, because it's peak. Hereditary, peak cinema, best Ari Aster movie in my opinion. Hereditary is so good. I love movies about the occult and the devil and all that kind of stuff, so Hereditary was right up my alley. The Lighthouse, easily in the Hall of Fame for me. Dude, The Lighthouse is so crazy. Willem Dafoe, his acting performance, and also just those crazy monologues, they're so good. I absolutely love it. I think it's Robert Eggers' best movie, and it's easily in the Hall of Fame. Knives Out, good movie. Honestly, borderline peak cinema. Yeah, I'm just going to keep it in the good movie category just to be a little bit more strict. I love mysteries. I love whodunits. I think Knives Out is one of the best whodunit type of movies. It's just really good. It's such a good time. The only issue, I guess, with Knives Out is that it's one of those movies where you can watch it once and it'll hit really hard the first time you watch it. I'm not really sure it's that rewatchable once you have the mystery revealed to you, but it's still a really good movie. I love Knives Out. All right, Midsommar. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm going to say I'm sorry. I like Ari Aster, mainly just because I really like Hereditary, and I know Midsommar has a lot of things going for it. It is incredibly well shot, beautiful looking movie, but I'm sorry. I wasn't really into it. I'm not put off by the weirdness of it all. Like, some people are just like, well, that movie is too weird. I don't really care. I actually like movies that are really weird, but I don't know. I just really didn't like the characters in Midsommar. Not that that's automatically a reason to not like a movie, because you can have a good movie where you don't like the characters, but I don't know. There's just something about Midsommar that just really didn't work for me at all. And as far as folk horror goes, I think The Wicker Man is a better movie, so. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. This is peak cinema, if you ask me. And I'll be honest, with Portrait of a Lady on Fire, part of me was thinking, this was like the perfect movie constructed in a lab to appeal to critics. Like, you know, at the beginning of Tropic Thunder, when they're doing all those fake movie trailers and they're kind of making fun of certain types of movies, Portrait of the Lady on Fire almost feels like it would be like a parody, critically acclaimed type of movie, but it actually is just really good, even if it does at times feel a little bit like critic bait. I don't even know if that's a thing? Is critic bait a thing? I know there's Oscar bait, but is critic bait a thing? I don't really know. Portrait of a Lady of Fire, I keep on mispronouncing that. So I've been recording this video for a long time at this point. I'm starting to get burnt out a little bit. Yeah, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Even if it is critic bait, I guess, it is still really, really good. So I have to put it in peak cinema. All right, Black Swan. I'm going to put this into peak cinema. I really like Darren Aronofsky. Love Requiem for a Dream. Also love Black Swan. He's not for everyone. Darren Aronofsky is not for everyone. Some people might even say that his movies are style over substance, or that he purposely just goes for shock value, and he kind of does, but I don't know. It works on me. I really liked Black Swan. I had a really great time watching it, so it's peak cinema. All right, Greener Grass. If you haven't heard of this movie, I would just describe this movie as the filmmakers went out of their way to try to make the weirdest movie possible. And I love weird movies, but there is a certain point where it's like, I was watching Greener Grass, I was thinking, okay, you guys are trying really, really hard to make this movie so weird, so bizarre. It's like, okay, like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a gimmick is what it is. It's kind of worth watching maybe the first 10, 20 minutes if you end up seeing it on Netflix or something, just to see what this movie is all about. Because, I mean, it's a bizarre movie for sure, but I don't know. I feel like the gimmick runs thin really fast. I'm just going to put this in trash because I ended up not putting that many movies in the lower tiers. And, I mean, with Greener Grass, I don't think I would ever really want to sit through this movie again. Project X. This is a movie I feel like you have to either be a high schooler or a freshman in college, frat bro, in order to really appreciate this movie. You know, when you go through that phase where you're like, yeah, bro, I party, I drink. Like when you're in that phase, Project X probably just goes absolutely hard. But after a bit, you're like, okay, cool, dude. Like, yeah, like welcome to the club. Like I remember when I had my first beer. So yeah, Project X goes into the mid tier. All right, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. It made me laugh, therefore it is a good movie. Hardcore Henry. Really cool for the first 10, 20 minutes because it's a first-person action movie. And I was like, okay, this is pretty impressive. This is a cool gimmick. But then after a while, the gimmick starts to run thin and the movie doesn't have much else going for it. So I'm just going to put it in mid. And then we have Drive, a movie where, in my opinion, the soundtrack is absolutely amazing and pretty much carries this movie. But if you took away how great the soundtrack is in this movie would just be kind of mid. But I will put this into the good movie tier just because the soundtrack is so good that it elevates it up a few tiers. All right, that's it. That's the tier list.